All right, get ready, because today we're diving deep into a story that has seriously shaped civilizations for like forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about the book of Genesis,
Genesis, okay.
specifically chapter 17 in the King James Version.
All right.
Now, you might be thinking,
I am.
oh, ancient scripture, boring old stories.
Yeah.
But hold on. This chapter is seriously a turning point,
The turning point.
like a major deal that sets things in motion for, well, generations to come.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
I knew you would be.
Lay it on me.
So we jump right in with Abram,
Abram.
who's, get this, already 99 years old.
99.
99. God appears to him, and, well, let's just say retirement plans are about to go out the window.
Wow, 99 years old. That's quite an entrance.
It is, isn't it?
So God's not letting him take it easy, huh?
Not even a little bit.
It's interesting you say deal, because in Genesis 17, that's exactly what it is.
Really?
A contract, like a
Yeah.
covenant between God and Abram.
Ah, I see what you mean.
And this isn't just a friendly agreement.
Yeah.
This is serious stuff.
So high stakes.
Huge stakes.
You can practically feel history, like hanging in the balance.
Well, you really can. I mean, here's Abram, almost at the end of a long life.
Right.
And God basically says, I'm not done with you. You're going to be the father of nations.
Talk about a second act, huh?
No kidding.
So let's break down this covenant. What exactly is God promising Abram?
Okay.
And what does Abram have to do in return?
Well, first of all, the promises are massive.
How massive?
God tells Abram he'll have more descendants than stars in the sky.
Oh.
They'll inherit the land of Canaan,
Wow.
and he'll become the father of multiple nations.
Okay, so huge promises.
Huge. But it's not just a free ride.
Of course not. There's got to be a catch.
Abram and all his descendants have to uphold their end of the bargain.
So what does that look like?
It means showing their commitment to God,
Okay.
living according to his laws, that kind of thing.
So it's about responsibility,
Absolutely. It's a whole new way of life.
not just blessings.
Right. Like imagine signing a contract
Okay.
to receive a huge inheritance.
Sounds pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you read the fine print
Uh-oh.
and it says you have to dedicate your life to a certain cause
Mm.
or live in a particular way.
Okay, yeah, I see the analogy.
That's basically what's happening with Abram.
A life-changing contract.
You could say that.
And to mark this big change, God gives Abram a new name,
A new name.
Abraham,
Abraham.
meaning father of a multitude.
Fitting.
His wife, Sarai, also gets a name change.
She does.
Yeah, she becomes Sarah.
Yeah.
Now, this might seem like a small detail,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling there's more to it.
Oh, definitely. It's way more than just a name change.
Okay, how so?
You see, in ancient cultures, names held power.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They were tied to your identity and destiny.
No way.
So this renaming, it's a total transformation, like a rebirth,
Wow.
that aligns Abram and Sarai with the huge promise they're about to take on.
So it's like shedding their old selves,
Exactly.
stepping into this new chapter,
A new identity.
reflecting this incredible destiny.
That's it.
But there's also this, well, kind of big ritual
Yeah.
that gets introduced as part of the covenant,
What's that?
circumcision.
Circumcision, right?
And that's where things get a little more complex.
Well, circumcision wasn't unique to just the Abrahamic tradition.
It wasn't.
Nope. It existed in other cultures too,
Interesting.
with different meanings. But in this covenant, it's a physical sign,
Okay.
a mark of the agreement between God and Abraham's descendants.
Like a badge of belonging.
Right. You got it. It sets them apart.
Shows their commitment.
Exactly. It's a way of showing, not just saying, we are bound to God and this is how we show it.
So it's more than just words.
Much more.
And it wasn't just for Abraham's direct descendants, was it?
No, it wasn't.
Even those born into the house or bought with money had to undergo circumcision.
Yeah, regardless of bloodline.
And that's a big deal, right?
It is.
Because it shows that this covenant extends beyond family ties,
You're right.
creates a community,
The spiritual family.
all united by this shared commitment.
Exactly. And it reveals just how seriously they took this ritual.
It was central to their identity as a people.
Very much so.
And there were some serious consequences if you didn't get circumcised, right?
That's right.
Like being cut off from
Yeah.
the people.
Yeah.
What did that mean exactly?
Well, cut off, it has a few different meanings.
Okay.
Practically, it meant being kicked out of the community,
Social isolation.
basically. But on a deeper level, it meant a break in the relationship with God.
Separation from his favor.
Exactly. It shows how seriously they regarded this covenant.
It wasn't just about a physical procedure then.
Nope.
It was about belonging, identity, and a deep spiritual connection.
You got it.
Then, in the middle of all this comes a promise so wild that Abraham laughs out loud.
He laughs.
He laughs. We're talking about the promise of Isaac, a son to be born to Sarah, who, by the way, is 90 years old at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Imagine that. You're 100 years old.
Yeah.
Your wife is 90.
Right.
And someone tells you you're going to have a child.
Laughter seems like a pretty natural response.
It's more than natural. It's almost involuntary at that point.
But I think there's something deeper going on here, too. It's not just about the biological impossibility of it all.
You think there's more to his laughter?
This laughter, it shows us something important about faith.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
It's not always about absolute certainty.
Mm-hmm.
It can exist alongside doubt, with questions, even with a little bit of cynicism.
So you're saying even Abraham, the father of faith, had his moments of doubt.
Of course he was human. And that, I think, is what makes this story so relatable.
I can see that.
It shows that faith isn't blind obedience.
Yeah.
It's about wrestling with what seems impossible, grappling with disbelief,
right,
and choosing to believe even when it seems crazy.
So even with the laughter, there's this underlying trust.
Exactly.
This willingness to step into the unknown.
Even when it doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And Abraham, he doesn't just sit back and accept this promise.
No.
He takes action. He does something to fulfill his part of the covenant.
Like what?
The circumcisions. He doesn't hesitate.
He jumps right in.
He circumcises himself, Ishmael, and all the men in his household.
Wow, that's commitment.
It shows how serious he was about honoring his agreement with God.
So we've got this incredible covenant.
Yeah.
A name change. A pretty significant ritual.
And a promise that seems, well, impossible.
And it all happens in just a few verses.
That's the power of this text.
It's concise, but packed with meaning.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to uncover.
Well, before we go any further, let's quickly recap what we've learned.
Okay.
God appears to Abram, changes his name to Abraham, and makes this huge covenant, promising him tons of descendants and the land of Canaan. In return, Abraham and his descendants have to hold up their end of the deal, which is symbolized by circumcision.
Yeah.
And just when you think things can't get any wilder, God promises Sarah, at 90 years old, will have a son named Isaac,
through whom the covenant will continue.
And don't forget about the idea of true circumcision.
What about it?
It's about the heart.
You mean a spiritual transformation?
Exactly.
Okay.
It makes you wonder, what does it really mean to be in a covenant with God?
That's a great question, and one we should definitely explore further.
I agree. But let's save that for part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Genesis chapter 17.
Genesis 17, all right.
We left off with this wild covenant between God and Abraham.
Right, with the name change and the promise of a son, even though they were, way past the age for that.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story.
It is. But as we dig deeper into this chapter, I think we should go beyond just what happens and ask ourselves, what does this story mean for us today?
That's a good question. So you're saying there's some timeless wisdom we can take from this ancient text?
Exactly. I mean, why does this story still resonate with people after all these years?
I guess it can't just be a historical curiosity, right?
Right. I think it taps into something we all feel, this longing for connection.
Connection.
Yeah, and purpose.
Purpose.
And also the weight of promises,
Promises made and kept.
Exactly. And even if we don't share the same religious beliefs, we can still understand those experiences.
It makes me think about a time a few years back when a close friend asked me something pretty big.
Oh, yeah?
She asked me to be the guardian of her kids if anything ever happened to her.
Wow, that's a huge request.
It really was. And honestly, I was kind of speechless at first.
I bet.
But as we talked, I realized it wasn't just about, legal stuff.
No.
It was about trust and commitment.
And
the deep bond we shared.
That's beautiful. And it's a perfect example of how covenant and promise play out in our own lives.
Even if we don't use those exact words.
Right. We make vows, we sign contracts, we enter into agreements all the time.
So those are like modern-day covenants.
Exactly. They shape our relationships and responsibilities.
So even if we're not making deals with God, we're constantly making deals with each other.
With ourselves, with our communities. You got it. And those agreements, they come with a sense of obligation and trust.
Just like with Abraham.
And just like in Abraham's story, these modern covenants require faith.
Faith. But not necessarily like religious faith.
Right. It could be faith in another person or faith in a system, you know?
Like faith that the promises will be honored.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here, but let's get practical.
Okay.
How can this ancient covenant, with all this talk of circumcision and chosen people, actually relate to our modern world?
Well, think about the idea of circumcision. Beyond the literal act, it symbolizes commitment, you know?
Okay.
And transformation, setting yourself apart, dedicating yourself to something bigger.
I never thought of it that way.
We may not physically mark ourselves today, but we do find other ways to show dedication.
Like how?
Like getting a tattoo to represent something important.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or wearing a wedding ring.
As a symbol of commitment.
Right. It's about expressing an inner transformation.
Showing what you believe in.
Exactly. But what about the idea of being chosen?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It feels a bit exclusive, especially in today's world where we value inclusivity.
That's a great point. And it's true, that idea of chosen people can be used to divide people.
Right.
But I think we can look at it in a different way, too.
How so?
What if, instead of seeing it as a sign of superiority, we saw it as a call to responsibility?
Responsibility.
Yeah, like Abraham and his descendants weren't chosen to be better than others. They were chosen for a purpose.
What kind of purpose?
To be a blessing to the world.
So it's not about being better than others. It's about using your gifts to make a difference.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
recognizing we all have something to offer. We all have a part to play.
We may not have a, divine call from God.
Right. But we all have passions, skills, experiences that can make the world a better place.
So instead of asking, am I chosen? We should ask ourselves, what am I called to do? How can I serve others?
I love that. It shifts our focus from entitlement to purpose.
Wow, this is really making me think about my own commitments.
Yeah.
My own sense of purpose. It's like this ancient story is giving me a whole new perspective.
That's amazing. And that's the beauty of these stories.
They can teach us so much, even after all this time.
They transcend time and culture.
So we've gone from ancient covenants to modern day promises, from circumcision to tattoos, from chosen people to a call to action. It's incredible how one chapter from Genesis can be so relevant to our lives today.
It is pretty amazing.
And we're not even finished yet.
There's still more to explore. But I think it's time to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
I agree. Listeners, we'll be right back to uncover even more insights from this fascinating chapter. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Genesis chapter 17.
Genesis 17, yeah.
We've been talking about this powerful covenant between God and Abraham
Right.
and how it can relate to our lives today.
Right, even thousands of years later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap things up, I want to touch on something that runs through this whole chapter.
Okay, what's that?
The idea of legacy.
Legacy.
This covenant isn't just about Abraham,
Right.
It's about his descendants.
All those who come after him.
Yeah, it's about inheritance.
Passing down something important.
From one generation to the next.
Exactly. It's bigger than just one person's life.
It's about creating something that will last.
It's about impact.
Like a ripple effect.
Right. It tells us that we're all part of a bigger story.
A story that goes beyond our own lifetimes.
And that our choices have consequences.
For the future.
Exactly. Our actions affect more than just ourselves.
It makes me think of my grandfather.
Oh, yeah.
Before he passed away, we were talking about his life. And he said the most important thing he'd leave behind wasn't money or possessions.
Really?
It was the values he instilled in his kids and grandkids.
That's powerful. It shows that legacy isn't just about stuff.
It's about the things you can't touch.
The values, traditions, stories we share.
It's about shaping the future by influencing those who come after us.
It's like we're all carrying a torch.
And we have to keep the flame going.
For the next generation. And within this idea of legacy, there's also a sense of destiny.
Destiny.
Like we're each meant to do something special.
Like Abraham and his descendants.
Yeah. They were chosen for a specific purpose.
But didn't we talk about how the idea of being chosen can be a problem?
We did. Especially today, when we value inclusivity. So how does this idea of destiny fit in?
It's a good question. We don't want to think that our lives are already planned out for us.
Right, like we have no control over our own choices.
That wouldn't feel very free, would it?
Not at all. But I think there's a balance here.
Okay, I'm listening.
We can acknowledge that we're born into certain situations, with certain traits, maybe even talents that we didn't choose.
But what we do with those things is up to us.
Exactly. We can make choices that align with our values.
Shape our own destiny.
Within the framework we're given.
So it's not about just accepting what's handed to you.
It's about Actively creating your own path,
engaging with your potential,
living with purpose.
and making choices that contribute to your legacy.
And that brings us right back to Abraham.
How so?
He wasn't just a passive recipient of God's promises.
He questioned things.
He had doubts. He even laughed. But in the end, he chose to act.
He had faith.
He stepped into the unknown and embraced his destiny.
And it wasn't always easy for him, was it?
Not at all. He faced challenges,
Doubts, setbacks,
times of despair, but he never gave up. He stayed committed.
and through his actions, he changed the course of history.
And that's such a powerful message for us today.
Yeah. Building a legacy, living a life with purpose, it's not always going to be easy.
There will be obstacles, times when we want to quit.
But those are the moments that define us.
It's our resilience, our commitment, our belief in something bigger than ourselves that really matters.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Genesis 17, what do you want our listeners to think about?
I hope they'll think about their own legacies
The values they've inherited, the impact they're making on the world,
and how they're shaping the future for others. I hope they'll think about the promises they've made, the things that are important to them.
and how their choices each day are contributing to their life story.
Because even the small things can make a difference.
Every choice, every word, every act of kindness, it all adds up.
We may not see the full impact in our lifetimes, but our legacies continue.
This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for guiding us through this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey through Genesis 17. We hope it's given you new insights into the power of legacy, the importance of commitment, and how this ancient story still speaks to us today. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep.